Welcome back to the Let Love Begin podcast, episode 5. Today, we're going to talk about how to keep an open heart while dating exhaustion sets in. Now, I can definitely put my hand up and admit that I have absolutely been exhausted by dating. It is exhausting, and that is a word that kind of encapsulates the experience so much. If you're in a moment in your life where the pressure to find the one is stealing your joy and fun, there's a lot to unpack here. But if you're already in the days of fatigue of dating, then this podcast may be something you want to have a listen to. So today I'm talking with Julia Bendis, third-generation matchmaker, author and relationship and dating coach. She specializes in intimacy, dating, and relationship coaching. And today we're going to discuss how to set boundaries and recognize when exhaustion is kicking in so we can learn to recharge, regroup, and keep our hearts open. As always, take what works for you, leave the rest. This is Let Love Begin, a podcast for the recovering brokenhearted, ready to heal and reclaim their enthusiasm. Yeah, so today we're going to talk about how to keep your heart open when dating exhaustion sets in. So tell us a little bit about how you got into matchmaking.
It's kind of an interesting story, actually. I feel like I never got into it. I was just born in it, if that makes any sense. It's very much a cultural thing. As long as I can remember, I always meddle in people's relationships, love lives, everything, as long as I can remember. My mom actually did this just for fun as a hobby. Well, not really for fun. It's a cultural thing. We're Eastern European. My mom was born and grew up in Ukraine. I was born in Ukraine. We lived in Latvia and the Baltic states. My grandma did it. It was just such a cultural thing. Every woman in that part of the world was always doing this, at least the Jewish women in my family. So it was a very natural thing. And I never really thought that it could turn into a business. And finally, after many years of meddling into people's love lives and sex lives and whatnot, I decided, why not make it a business? I'm doing this more than any other job I've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to try it. Never thought that it would stick. Never thought it would actually be a business, but people apparently are happy to pay. So
yeah, people want to find love. They definitely want to find love. And we're talking today about the specific moments, a specific period after you break up, and you're somewhat ready to get out there again, which is a really vulnerable place for a lot of people, especially if you've come from someone that you thought might have been your life partner and turns out they're not. And it's really disheartening. I'm speaking from personal experience here. It's really
Right.
disheartening getting out there. And I think part of it, from my experience, is us not being able to open our hearts, which is why this podcast exists of, Let Love Begin. But it's also a bunch of other people who are also in that boat. So there seems to be this kind of clashing of we're both kind of guarded. We both have all this baggage. We've both been heartbroken, but here we are. And that can get really exhausting. So from your experience, how have you seen this kind of manifest? And also, what can we do about that?
Right. It's a question I get asked all the time because breakups are inevitable, right? As I always say, nothing is forever in life, especially relationships, unfortunately. It's depends on whether the couple wants to just completely give up and walk away and start over or keep trying. So I always tell people before you're completely done, give it a break, give it a physical break, separate, do whatever it takes to make sure that this is it. This is really what you want. But if it does happen, like you said, there's a lot of heartbreak. It's very hard to get back out there. So what I always say is that it's impossible to be completely healed, so to speak, before you move on. Because you hear that advice all the time, right? You have to take time away from dating, stop dating, heal yourself, work on yourself. Once you're ready, once you've completely healed yourself and worked on everything, then you can get back out there. Well, I'm sorry, but that's bullshit. Nobody will ever be fully healed. Nobody will ever be perfect and ready for anything. So, of course, you should take time off. You should take time apart away from dating, but not in a year. not a huge significant time, because especially depending on your age, you might be wanting to have children. You might, your biological clock is ticking. So when I hear that kind of advice, it always irks me because, we're never going to be 100% in anything. So the word, which I have such a hard time pronouncing this word, I always call it manifesting. I don't know why. I can't say it. You say it.
Manifesting.
My husband and my kids are like, it's not manifesting. I'm like, I cannot say that word, but I hear it. It must be, my first language was Russian. We learned Latvian in school. And then with the war in Ukraine, I've been picking up some Ukrainian too, because I've been helping. And so manifesting, it's such a big thing. Everybody's doing it. Everybody's talking about it. And all it is just putting positive thoughts of what you want out there. Really, the more your brain believes it, the more things are just going to open up and happen in a positive way. That's all it is. It's really just about being positive. So you can sit at home in your pajamas and sweatpants and eating ice cream all day long and hope that it magically happens and this guy or girl just falls into your lap. But we know the truth, it doesn't happen. You have to do the work. You got to put yourself out there. You got to get back on the horse. It is so hard. I know it is. My advice for first step, take time off, of course. Do whatever it is you need to do to get that initial shock out of your system. Come to terms with it, but then get back out there, because otherwise you're really just wasting time, because you're never going to be 100%, right? It's almost like death. Do we ever get over losing someone? No, it's always there. We'll always carry each person with us for the rest of our lives. They taught us something. It's been educational, if nothing else, and we're never going to get past it. So if you truly want to be in a relationship and you want to settle down and you want to start a family or whatever it is that's on your list to do it, get back out there. But yes, you have to take some time to grieve that and to come to terms with it. Okay, it's over. Now what? And then move on.
Yeah. Wow, I'm really glad you said that, because I feel like it's almost this kind of image of this, of this toddler, like not accepting the reality of what's happening. There's nothing that's going to fix it. Like you said, like I love that you said it is like death. It's the death of something that's incredibly important to you, and that is heavy. And like you said, you never get over it. I'm glad you said that. It's kind of like we learn to live with it and then we move on.
I mean, you can pout all about it. You can cry. You can be angry. You can send all kinds of texts and angry, whatever, and be devastated about it. But at the end of the day, what are your options, right? Whether you broke up with that person, they broke up with you, you both decided it wasn't working. There was a reason why you broke up. So you have to kind of get it through your mind, your brain, your body, everything, that there's a reason why we broke up. So instead of thinking of all the positives of that relationship and what you miss, think about all the negatives. Every time that thought pops into your head of I'm so lonely and I miss him or her so much, why did we break up? Why did this happen? I don't want this. I want back in that relationship. Think about those reasons. And what I always tell people is start writing it down. There's nothing more cathartic and helpful to the brain. And they've done studies on this. When you write things down and you see it in front of you every single day, it helps you to accept it. So I always tell people, I actually had a little video about it. Just put Post-it notes, like right there in your mirror when you wake up, and all those lists, all those items that why you broke up, why it didn't work out, why you need to move forward, why this wasn't the right relationship for you. It's like a reminder, and you trick your brain to start thinking of it like, okay, it's done, it's over, I need to move on, And I don't know if you ever saw the show. It's very popular in the States, but I think it was called Being Mary Jane. It was on BET, which my favorite network, Black Entertainment Television. And I think I watched every show on there, but she literally had Post-its. Go and watch the past episode. I mean, it ended years ago, but she literally had all these Post-its of what she wants to accomplish, what she wants to do, what she doesn't want to do, what she won't go back to. Just a reminder. Sometimes you have to see it visually. We're all visual, right? Men, women, everyone.
I totally agree. And it's funny that you say that about the Post-it notes, because I have a friend, I was sharing a hotel room, we were at a conference, and I came back into my hotel room and she's got Post-it notes all over the windows.
Wow.
It was I was like, this is the best thing ever.
I love it.
It was actually to do with business, not with love. But when you were talking about those Post-it notes, I was thinking, like, if she can do that with business and plan out her business with Post-it notes, why can't we do that with our actual life? I feel like so many people put their lives and their love lives last, or they don't deal with it. And and what I mean by that is this podcast was created for the exact space between you've broken up, you want to heal, but you're finding it hard to let people in. And the reason why I wanted to create that is because I lived in that place for so long. I lived there. I missed out on so many opportunities because I couldn't let love begin. And if you I think this strategy of mapping it out and those reminders is so true, because it's so easy to forget. It's so easy to fall into, for lack of a better word, I'm going to call it depression, and just stay in that place, right? And not want to get out of bed. But if you have that small reminder and it was you who wrote it down, then it's like, hang on, I do want to get this. And yeah, it's hard, but life can change in a second. And life can change in a second in a not so great way and in an awesome way. One thing can happen that can just light you up. That minute that thing that lights you up happens, it's like in a second, you had access to something that just elevated your mood, that elevated your light, that elevated your ability to want to be awake and be in that moment. And if that can happen from external sources, then why can't we tap into that?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that that's not how our brains are wired. Psychologically, we we automatically go to the extreme. We go to the negative first. Why do you think there's so many negative reviews online? People are wired to go to the negative first. And whether it's just thinking about the past, whether it's thinking about an experience they had, or going into a restaurant and receiving bad service, and they're more likely to review a place when it's been a negative experience and not positive. So we have to also remember that, right? When we are grieving for the past relationship, we're so quick to point out the things that we miss, but we forget all of those negative things. Why? We shouldn't. Our brain is not wired that way, but we're also very emotional people, especially women. We're more emotional, and we know that. Although I hope men are starting to be more emotional on the surface, not holding it all in. But it goes for every relationship, and it's just a mindset. And if you can put yourself in that mindset and say, look, there was a reason why this happened, I am moving forward. And, sometimes I'm finding people are happier when they're not in monogamous relationships. I have a lot of clients that say, look, I was the happiest when I was juggling 2-3 different people. And moving forward, I realized I don't want to be in a monogamous relationship. I want to be in an open relationship. I want to be in a polyamorous, whatever. So our society is changing too. Every relationship, every breakup should teach you and help educate you in what you want moving forward and what you don't want in every aspect.
I'm seeing that a lot. A lot of people are living alternative lifestyles. And I say that loosely because it's not really alternative anymore, really, if it's more common, is it?
Right, exactly.
So let's say we're in that stage, we're ready to date again, we're out there, and we're getting discouraged because we're not, we're bringing our baggage. Those people are bringing their baggage. And then that is really tiring. We, really have fatigue around that. And also we have this pressure, like you said, picture a woman in her late 30s who wants to find somebody to have a family with. There's this pressure that really kind of steals the joy and the fun of dating. What are some ways we might be able to just stay in the moment and not let that pressure infiltrate our experience?
It's really unfortunate that especially women still have that pressure, whether it's from our society, whether it's cultural, whether it's from their families. I think the best way to go about it is realize that the more you have all that pressure and all those voices in the back of your mind, the more it's going to stop you from finding the right person. Because now you're dating to fulfill all of those pressures, so to speak. Now you're just dating to check off that list that you have. And you're dating for your family, for your parents, for your culture. You really should be out there just for you. I mean, I hear it a lot too, is that from clients, I'm going to date only someone from my culture because that's what my parents expect. That's what would be better for everybody. I had a man who just came to me recently. He's in his early 30s and he's Indian, and he only wants to date Indian women. And I said, okay, but what about you? What do you want? He's like, you know what? I'm open to everything, but I know that my life will be so much harder if I bring home a non-Indian woman. And to me, that was so sad. And I encourage people to break out of that shell, because unless you're still living with your parents and relying on them for a paycheck, you just have to really decide what is the most important thing to you. And I always tell people, you can't have everything in one person. So write down your whole list, whatever all those items on 10, 20, 100 things that are a must, then cross off all of them and leave like 3, because that's really more realistic. You want a great lover, you want a great provider, you want a great father for your children, you want someone who has a great career, you want, the list goes on and on, whatever it is. Oh, and he must be over 6 feet tall, and he must be sexy and handsome. And the same goes for women. I have the shortest women. I mean, the shortest women that asking for like men that are, a foot taller than them or whatever it is. And I'm speaking of, American metrics. You understand what I'm saying? It's like, why? You barely can see over this table. What do you need a giraffe for? Like, you need a pet. I mean, I had my son actually helped me create this meme, as the kids call it. And it was literally giraffe looking down at a woman and she's got him on a leash. I'm like, you need a pet. You don't need a husband or a partner, because it's so unrealistic. So what if he's your height with heels on, or even shorter? Some of the shortest men I've known have the most confidence, and they walk into a room and it's like they're 7 feet tall, So I think you people have to decide what is the most important thing. Is it to please my parents and my culture? Is it to please myself first? Is it to create a life together? What are those most important items? And I always say just pick 2 or 3, and the rest are just completely unimportant.
What about if you're like, okay, so you've dealt with the pressure, or at least you've acknowledged the pressure, and you're just on these apps and you're like, oh my gosh, this is I'm so discouraged. I've just got swipe fatigue. I just, I'm just exhausted. Like what's some advice around that?
And that happens all the time, and that's why a lot of times people hire me to do it for them. Unfortunately, all I can do is swipe for you, tell you who to start to talk to, but I can't have full-on conversations with them. They almost want me to become them and just have conversation and weed out the people and screen out the people online. And I can only go so far, right? I can start a conversation with someone and then hand it over to them. And unfortunately, this dating fatigue you speak of is very real, and it happens. And my advice is always, just like with everything else, take a break. You have to take a break. You have to walk away. I always tell people that it takes a good month in order to see any kind of results. So let's say you signed up for, whatever, there's so many apps. Let's say you signed up for Hinge or Bumble. Stick with one app. Do not sign up for 3, 4 different apps, which people do all the time. Typically women, because, we're multitaskers. Well, if we decide this is the year we find a husband, this is the year we're going to find a husband. So I see them signing up for Match and Hinge and Bumble and whatever. And then it becomes overwhelming, obviously, because men see women and they if it's someone they want to go after, they'll start messaging, they're liking, and then you forget who you talked to, you forget who you said what to. It's not quantity, it's quality. So I say stick to one app, and you have to give it about 3 to 4 weeks before you see any results, because if you swipe right on them, or you like them, it doesn't mean that they're going to see it right now. the second or even later today. If they're not on the app, they're not going to see it. They may get a notification, but unless they log in and they see you and they actually swipe right or left, so it might take a few days. Sometimes people are traveling, they don't even log in. Sometimes they have notifications off when they go into a business meeting. So you have to give it time and you have to be patient. You have to be, because if one person you just had a horrible texting, messaging conversation with, the next person may not be. You can't judge everyone by one bad apple, right? So I say take a break, give it time, be patient, and you have to take breaks in between. It's like a full-time job, and you have to treat it like a full-time job. And if you don't have time for it, then hire someone who can walk you through it and create the right profile, because it's also about who you're attracting with your pictures, with what you put on there. All of that attracts certain type of people. So if you put a bikini picture of yourself, which is great, you look great, you want to put it on there, fine. But what kind of people are you going to attract with that?
Yeah, that's right. And yet, I just want to point out, like, I never have notifications on because it's so, it infiltrates your life so much. It takes over that I'm like, I'm on it when I'm ready and I'm mentally available. I do not have notifications on because I don't want to be bombarded. And you get a lot of messages on these apps. And the other thing as well is, I don't know, I can only speak for myself, but I want to be respectful when I'm on there. So if I, yeah, and also like, I don't ghost people. Like I'll say, hey, I'm really sorry, this isn't working for me, or I'm not sure I'm feeling the spark that I'm looking for, or whatever it is, so that at least they've got some closure. Because I think it's really painful. Like their dating etiquette's really gone out the window, and a lot of people are just ghosting and, you know, rude, and yeah, it's not a nice experience, and I don't want to contribute to that.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because there is no etiquette on there. And I tell all my female clients and all the women that come to me, for every guy you reject because he was being inappropriate, whatever it was, send them to me so I can teach you how not to do that again. You know, for every person that you reject because you think they're not acting right online, send them to me. And then I can teach them what not to do, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's really strange, isn't it? It's so weird to me. Like, I don't know, people think that a lot of the behavior is okay. It's just like, what's your goal, dude? What are you trying to accomplish here?
You know, I would say 50% of the people are probably just trying to get laid. And the rest are, well, maybe not even that. I think it depends on the season. Really, it really depends on the season. And it's very easy to weed out the wrong ones. It's very easy right off the bat to see where that person is headed and what they're trying to accomplish. If they don't respond right away, if they take forever, if they give you one word answers, you know, there's always red flags and there's green flags. But it's up to you to notice it right away and not waste too much time, because that's what we do. Oh, he said he was busy, he won't take as long next time, or she, you know, and then it happens again, and there's the sorries again, and then there's the apologies again, and it's a never ending cycle. Or they give you one word answers when you've written a whole paragraph. That's not right either. It's got to be back and forth. And if it's just you asking all the questions and them just replying and not asking you anything, be done immediately, because they don't want to know anything about you. This is not serious to them.
What's your take on, like, how early should we meet someone? Let's say it's going well and we're like, okay, finally, I found someone I want to meet. Do you have an opinion on having phone calls before you meet?
Oh, yes. Yes. No, I have very strong opinions about that. And if you can even get on a video call, that's even better. I know not everybody likes those. You know, we all want to look good and whatnot and be in the right environment. I don't suggest, and I know a lot of people do this immediately. They just, when they exchange numbers, they just do FaceTime and they immediately get on a video call. Don't do that. It's very pushy because you don't know where that person is. They might be at work, they might be at the gym, they might be with their parents, their friends. Don't be doing that. Set up a time to call, because you will be calling each other and missing each other every single time. Everybody's so busy nowadays. It's sad to say that, but you have to like book a time with each
Yeah.
other.
Oh, of
So yeah,
course. Yeah, yeah.
you have
Especially if
to.
you don't know that person. I mean, that's just a respectful thing to do.
Right. And, you know, it is business like as it sounds. This is just our reality now. So I say message each other, find out if the things you're looking for is in fact what that person is looking for. If you feel comfortable that you're on the same path, it's a ping pong match, or like a tennis match. It's going back and forth. He asks you a question, you ask him a question. You go back and forth, and it's not all about them. They're not being selfish and egotistical. If you feel good about the conversation, then give them your number. I would say try not to spend too much time messaging back and forth because it burns out really fast. You get tired of messaging. So don't automatically, when you match with someone, give them your number. Of course, do a little bit of screening first, but then a phone call is next. I am a huge believer in meeting in person because there's nothing like that sitting across from each other, having a meal, just seeing each other's faces, seeing each other's reactions, body language, and knowing you, because you'll know right away whether this is the person you want to see again or not. So I say try to follow those steps, messaging, not for too long, phone call, and then make a plan before you get off the phone. Make a plan to meet while you're on the phone. I mean, you can say, you don't have to give specifics, but you can say, listen, I love chatting with you. I would love to meet you. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. Women should stop waiting for men to ask them out. You met online, you were both on there for the same reason. If he hasn't brought it up and you're feeling it, and you like him, what's the worst he can say? I'm sorry, I'm not feeling it. Okay, bye.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you said that. Thank you. Yes. I mean, yeah. I don't know about this waiting around thing. I'm like, just put it out there. Like you said, at least you'll know either way. I recently had a situation with a guy that I was dating for a little while, and then he actually left to go back to his ex. We were just in the early stages of dating, like a couple of days. And I was like, okay, I'm surprised because she was violent towards you.
Wow.
I know, right? And I was like, oh, you'd rather be with someone who's violent than with me. Okay.
Well, and there's something with that too. It becomes an attachment of sort as well.
Well, it was, yeah, definitely.
There's the whole other issues that obviously he hasn't dealt with.
No, but I really liked him. And anyway, it didn't work out. And then we didn't see each other for probably 2 years or a year and a half. And then we met each other again, and we just happened to hook up again the first time we saw each other because the energy was still there, because we had great energy. Anyway, I could feel myself falling straight away. Like, I really liked him. And I basically just said to him, I was like, do you know what? I can't do this. Like, I need to know either way. Like, if there's nothing's going to come of this, I'm not going to keep hanging out and doing this with you. I didn't say it like that to him. I basically said to him, here's the situation. Here's how I feel. Is there a possibility that this could turn into something or not? And he was like, he actually said, leave it with me because I've got to think about it. And then he was like, I think we should just be friends. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm not going to be your friend. That's it. I'm done.
Wow.
Yeah, because I was like, I just need to know. And it was really vulnerable. I was really vulnerable. And I made the decision in that moment, just be vulnerable because at least you'll know. And I'm so glad that I did that, because it wasn't a huge blow when he said no, because I wasn't really expecting him to say yes. What would have been really hurtful for me is if he said, yes, and then strung me along, breadcrumbed me, and then I would have got much more hurt because I would have got attached. But when he broke it off, I was like, thank you. I love the clarity. And he was like, do you want to be friends, or do you want to have dinner? And I was like, no, there'll be no dinners. There'll be no friendship. That's it. I know I like you to this degree, so I'm not willing to do anything else, and I'm okay with not being friends. If that's what it is, I'm cool with that. And then emotionally, I really protected myself from actually getting hurt.
But see, before you even told me what happened, I already knew that this wasn't going to work out, because he told you the first time. And, I'm sorry to be so blunt, but this is who I am. And this is how I can help people,
Yeah.
And I know a lot of my clients really appreciate when I tell them, just from what I've know of over 20 years of seeing relationships, and it never fails. It's always the same story. He already showed you the first time what kind of person he is, right? He left you to go back to an abusive person, ex. Yeah. And then he came back. When he came back, you should have just been, nah, we're done. But clearly there's an attraction. Sex is great. That's all great. Get it, do it, whatever I'm all for it. But you already know what kind of person he is. So, and people never change. I mean, I literally just posted this yesterday. People never, ever change, and nobody can change them. And there's no situation that could ever happen that will justify them being this way. Meaning, whatever happened with his ex that made him go back, whatever, the situation was, it doesn't matter. It's all about him being the way that he is. And he'll probably go back to her again and again and again, and he's going to hope that there's still something there with you because he's clearly attracted to you and he wants sex. I mean, it's unfortunate that people like that waste time.
Well, that's why I was like, I just need to know. I need a black and white answer. But you know what though? For me, I actually felt like that was such a win because I was like,
of course, and it's closure in a way. I'm sorry.
It was major closure. But I was really proud of myself because I remember thinking, like years ago, I wouldn't have done that because I really liked him. I would have let it strung out because I didn't want to face the reality. I remember ringing my girlfriend and saying, I'm actually really proud of myself that I that I put myself out there because it was really hard and I got a clear answer and I've cut him off. Like I could have easily just said, oh yeah, we can still have dinner, we can still hang out. And I was like, nah, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that with you. Like we're done.
And you needed that for your own peace of mind.
Absolutely.
And it was you don't regret anything. It was a great experience either way. So
yeah,
that's the healthy way of dealing with things, because people always say to me, especially women, I feel so used. I feel so guilty. I had sex with him and this. I'm like, who cares? Did you have fun? Oh, yes, it was amazing. So what do you feel bad about? He didn't use you. You used him. Look at it that way. We all deserve great sex, great orgasms, great everything. Who cares? It's 2022, 21st century. Like, you get to have sex and not feel bad about it, even if it goes nowhere.
Yeah.
And that's all that there was there, and that's fine. You're moving on.
Yeah, and I totally, I got something out of it too. So I got a lot of out. I got a great night, but then I also got this exercise in vulnerability, but also creating closure for myself and sticking to it. Because the funny thing is I felt like sad for about 24 hours, literally 24 hours. And then I was like, okay, that's done. Whereas, so that is a huge win for me because I would not normally have had that. It would be dragged out and infiltrate my life. And, and so I was like, good for you. you know?
But that's good. You're learning with each experience, with each new experience, you're learning to just put it in the past. Okay, that happened. Moving on. Great. That wasn't for me. I really do believe that everything that is meant for us happens. It may not happen tomorrow, but it happens at some point. So, and I don't believe that there's only one soulmate out there for us. There's so many different people that we could be great together with, just depending on the time and depending on the age and depending on what it is that you want in your life. So, and you just move forward. What other choice do we have? Go hide under a rock and die? I mean,
okay, so let's talk, before you talked about a little bit about red flags and green flags, let's talk about, so when you're dating and swiping and you're exhausted and you're like, look, I've got, an ounce of effort left. What are some signs you should maybe take a break from the dating? But then what are some, when you are dating, how can we date more intentionally and see those green and like bring the green flags forward and the red flags forward faster so then we can make decisions more quickly?
Right. Well, so first of all, it's just as much about your own profile as it is about theirs. So you have to curate your profile. You have to make it perfect. And I don't mean perfect by physical perfection. I'm talking about the right profile, the right items on it, the right prompts, the right everything that you put out there, the pictures especially. And I love when some people come to me and they say, men or women, oh, well, I'm a very visual person, so I need to see pictures. Who isn't? We're all visual people, men, women, dogs, pets. I mean, geez, 3-year-olds are visual. So you don't need to give me that story. But so it's about the right profile. It's about what you put on there. I mean, of course, when you work with a matchmaker, it's different. We do this all for you. And it's also about your attitude. I have sat next to so many clients And after a while, of course, if I've had a long day, I start to do this too. And that's when I know I need to take a break because I feel like I'm dating with these people. But if you're swiping and every profile, you just, oh, oh no, 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 go away. Forget it. This is your attitude, you shouldn't be dating. And I have so many clients like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you thinking? What do you think is going to happen? This perfect Prince Charming or Princess Charming or whatever will just pop out of there and break this mold of all this negativity? No, it's about you. So maybe he's just an idiot and he didn't know what picture to use. So he used this dumbass picture. Are you not going to give him a chance?
Right.
You know how many times when you just tell someone like, oh my gosh, what was that all about that you wrote on there? That seemed kind of weird. And then they say, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I was doing it fast and I just wanted to get on there. You know what? I'm going to delete it. A lot of times people don't even realize what they're posting and what they're saying. Or selfies in the bathroom. I mean, how many of those we've seen men with their phones and there's a toilet behind them or a urinal, public bathroom.
Right.
Oh, I look good that day. I've done a whole video on this. Like, if you think you look good, have someone take a picture of you or do it when you're at home in a long mirror with nothing behind you. Crop out your hand with the phone in it,
Yeah.
So it's so much about all of that, the right profile, having the right attitude, which I know it sounds so cliche, but it really is. You can't start dating and having a negative attitude. All men are jerks. All men just want sex. All women are after money. Oh, I mean, we hear this stuff all the time. No, you cannot come in with that attitude. You're going to get bupkis. The more negative you are, you're going to attract negative. That's really what life is about. It's like what goes around comes around. It's all the same thing. Also looking out for red flags, looking at the pictures, looking at what they said, listening to what he's telling you, what she's telling you in the messaging. People these days are very forward and they will tell you exactly what they want. They will tell you what you just have to listen to those things. So I always say there's red flags, there's green flags, and then there's yellow flags, because that's a warning to you that he or she is trying to tell you who they are or what they want, but you're not listening because he looks good or she looks good. So you keep going, hoping this is the right person or hoping that you can skew them into a different direction. So it's all about really listening to what that person is saying. Like I said, the biggest thing is if someone's giving you short answers, that's a red flag. That's not even a yellow flag. That means they don't even have time for this. Or if they keep apologizing and say, I'm sorry, it's been such a crazy busy week, I didn't get a chance to reply to you. And it keeps happening. It's like, then I'm sorry, but you shouldn't be on that. So it's about really listening. I notice a lot of times both parties, men, women, whether you're straight, gay, bi, people don't listen. It's all right there, but we choose to ignore it and we keep going with our own agenda. And that's where we get into trouble. That's where we match with the wrong people.
Let's talk about listening in terms of listening to their behavior versus their words. Because I find so many times, people are telling you with their behavior. For me, behavior is so much more important than their words. People can say anything,
Of course. Exactly. That's what I mean. Whether you just starting to talk to someone or you've been out on a few dates and it's a repeated behavior, even with that guy that you were just talking about that you went back to. And I always say people, it's like that saying, fool me once, shame on me, or fool me twice, shame on, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
There should be twice. There should not be twice.
What about if you're in a relationship with someone or you're dating someone and then they go cold? They're like too busy for you.
Bullshit. No, they're not. Bullshit. They're either seeing someone else or there's other options, or they're just, when you first meet someone and there's that excitement of that potential of what could be, and slowly it wears out. So then now that they have you, they get very comfortable.
Yes.
You sure they could be busy at work. Nobody's that busy, right? They can always send a text. We're always in touch. We're always connected now with our phones and emails and Snap crap and whatever, Insta crap and all of that. People will always make time for what's important to them. So
Yeah,
I'm
it's true.
sorry, but it's just not important to that person then, then
Yeah.
whoever it is, it's just not that important to them. So, or, they're just out there seeing what else is there. And if you're not exclusive, it's like that movie. I don't know. I know you're much younger than me, but that film, he's just not that into you, the guy that wrote that book, which I think he's full of crap mostly, but that movie and some of the things he says is very true. Men are very direct. If you think of what they're asking, they'll tell you exactly, what they're thinking. If you ask a man what they're thinking, they're going to tell you exactly what they're thinking. And most of the times they're not thinking that much, but they're very direct. So they're never going to really try to play games. If they're pulling back, they're pulling back. They're not that interested. Yeah. Or they have something else going. Really, it's that simple. It's the same for women too. We don't stop reaching out to someone just because we're busy. We don't. We will always reach out and we'll say something. Hey, I'm thinking about you. I know today has been crazy, but can I see you tomorrow? I won't be able to call you till whatever, but I'll see you then. And if all they're doing is I'm busy, I'm sorry, I'm busy, I'm sorry, and they don't give you an alternative date or time they can see you.
Yeah.
Just pulling back because they're not interested. And there might be somebody else that they're trying to see, It's like having a new shiny puppy or toy.
Julia, thank you so much for being here. I'm gonna wrap it up on that note. So what's one final thing you have to say? If the dating exhaustion is setting in and you're just like, oh my gosh, is this ever going to happen for me? I just don't have anything left in the tank. What's your advice?
Take a break. Definitely take a break. We all need it sometimes. But the other big thing that I always tell people, stop asking every Dick, Joe, and Harry for advice, especially your single girlfriends. Don't ask them for advice. They want you to stay single. If they're not seeing someone and you're not seeing someone, that's great. As much as they want you to be happy, they also want you to stay single as long as they are single. Right. And what's right for them is not right for you.
Yes, so that's great advice.
Only you know what's right for you. So stop asking people for advice. That's my final advice.
I think that's a really good one. There's a lot of, unqualified advice flying around there, isn't there?
Even among coaches and matchmakers and professionals.
Yes, I've seen that too. Yes. Not all coaches and doctors and matchmakers are created equal. That's for sure.
No.
Julia, thank you so much for being here. I really, really appreciate all of your advice and input today. If people want to learn more about you and get in touch, how can they do that?
Of course. Thank you so much. So my website is matchbyjulia.com. All over social media, unfortunately, Julia Bendis everywhere. And matchbyjulia.com is probably the best way to see my website, and everything is on there.
Amazing. Amazing. Awesome. Julia, thank you so much again. You are an absolute legend. I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I love talking to you.
Welcome. This podcast is a Rebel Love production. To find the links mentioned in this episode, go to rebellove.com/letlovebegin. Amazing.